Hey, and Happy New Year. Tonight I'm going to showcase my build that I used to do the challenges in 3.23 Affliction League.
Just need a moment to catch my breath.
So be it. Precious sanity, my agent of chaos.
This one is my own creation.
Such a dark glow.
Leads
It
me.
cannot look away.
Darkness surrounds us. Ah, plenty more where that came from. Face your destruction. Sin surrounds you.
Less real and more real.
Burn away, sin. No! Impossible! How? This isn't over. This will never be over. I will unify humanity.
The prize piece comes to join
My collection.
a cascade of pain.
Pain will be returned tenfold. Space lines. Behold my collection.
I will have what I want. Death will not be an escape.
Death
Take
made
this.
real.
Why?
Resistance will be punished. Time contorts. Scary. Scary.
My irritation is growing. This will not be an escape. Scurry! Scurry!
Just need a moment to catch my breath.
Death made real.
Do what I say. Stand still. How?
Stop resisting. Reality bends. Punishment inescapable.
Arrogant toy. Stand still. Death will not be an escape.
Trickster.
Exile, do something!
Just need a moment to catch my breath.
Gaze into the abyss. Ultimate chaos. Embraced by misery. Or perish. You force my hand again, little mouse. So you've chosen the side of Kenneth. Victory is mine. And you chose not order.
smuggle or strangle.
Just need a moment to catch my breath.
Endless temple tears. Another challenger. Shadow, rise and fight. Resist the assault. Dazzling display of survival. This is steady. Take the prize. Repeat my challenge. Gather more combatants.
Your series of victories will end here.
Just need a moment to catch my breath.
This will not continue. I am unconcerned.
And as the last build of 2023, we are going to honor the classics, the Poison Spark. We are going to play Trickster, and it's a very expensive build. But gladly, the opportunity cost of the build is very low. All the expensive items are easily sellable, and I'm talking about original sin and mageblood. This is like 80% of the build's cost, and you can easily resell those items without any problems. Everything else was under 100 divines, which is pretty cheap for what the build achieves. So, now we are going to talk about the deck. We are utilizing Widowhail. With Spark losing its projectile speed, we need to get it somehow, and the best way to do it is quiver. Widowhail increases the bonuses from quiver by up to 50% and allows us to do some interesting synergy with Trickster and frenzy charges. We are getting a synthesized quiver with 4 to 7 added cold damage per frenzy charge and stacking frenzy charges. Implicits like elemental damage help us quite a lot, but global critical strike multiplier is a waste. Although I have it because previously the build was a crit hit build and not poison dot build. Next, we are going to use a precursor with another added cold damage per frenzy charge, and ideally a maximum frenzy charge. This ring was 50 divines, although I think it might cost more, but still it's pretty expensive, yes, but this is one of the few items are expensive in this build. We are going to use Ralakesh Impatience to just not care about generating charges, and I also wanted to add in some new item called Replica Badge of the Brotherhood for some defense and for some interesting interaction with new charm system and Immortal Call. The amulet, as you can see, is pretty much purely defensive. It gives us no offensive stats outside of our annoyance and corruption. So if you want even more damage for example, Uber.cap, you would definitely replace this one, especially because it's not as important, but it's very nice in content like Simulacrum and shit. What are we doing with our charms and what are we doing with our tree? As you can see, the tree is pretty standard. We grab the Chaos Mastery here for some Wither uptime. We are grabbing the Aura nodes for the increased damage per aura, because we use quite a lot of auras. The classic Chaos clusters with the Wicked Pole, Unwavering Evil, Unholy Grace. And here we have Eternal Suffering for some easier Wither application. Combined with this Chaos Mastery, it's quite nice to have. We also use Wasting Affliction for poison deal damage faster to ramp up our poisons. And we use Wicked Pole also for skill effect duration. Same goes for this cluster, although I have Circling Oblivion and Wasting Affliction on this cluster, and Septic Strikes, Septic Spells on this one with Wicked Pole. there is a forbidden set combo for Assassin. It's Noxious Strike. It's not very good, but I like it because it was very cheap. It was 120 C and I was down bad to like 10 divines at the time. So I had to grab this one instead of a Charm. Charm is way better, way more expensive. So if you would push this build further, you would definitely go for the Charm route. You would get a Charm with the Poison mod. The mod reads like 3% increased poison duration per poison applied recently, up to a maximum of 100%. With the amount of hits we have and with the amount of cast speed we have, it's easily achievable. So this is pretty much just a charm that you don't need to use at all. And 2 rare jewels would be way better for the damage and for survivability. But again, it was pretty cheap, so I got it. Outside of that, the 3 is pretty much standard for Poison Spark. We are going for Elemental Overload since we are not using the Scepter for it, and we have to grab it manually, but gladly. Elemental Overload also allows us to get Acrimony for some more skill effect duration and some more ailment duration. Next up, we are going to talk about what we do with our Mage Blood Flask. I really like Avoid Shock plus Storm Shroud Jewel. It allows us to be ailment immune and we can just chill without any problems. Then we are doing obviously either Effective Curses or Avoid Stun, depends on what kind of map you run or what kind of content you do. For example, if you do Simulacrum, I find Avoid Stun to be very, very nice. I'm using Jade Flask, although I do think that in a perfect scenario you would drop the Jade and instead get Elemental Flask like Cold or Lightning Flask with increased evasion mod, and you just drop either Effective Curses or Avoid Stun. It's not a big deal. You don't really get stunned that often, it's just in Simulacrum pretty much, and as far as curses go, as long as you are overcapped on resistances, it's not really a big deal. As a last flask, you obviously want to get Quicksilver with the reduced mana cost of skills, although you again can drop Quicksilver for another elemental flask, for example, bossing, right? And in general, in footage, I'm not swapping flask, I'm not doing anything really special, I'm not a bosser, I'm a mapper, and this is bosses I did purely for the challenges. I didn't mind dying twice on Uber Elder and twice on Uber Maven, because why would I care? The build is capable of doing them, and if you over prepare, it will be even easier. Right? I just didn't care about it. Progenesis here is not needed, as you can see, it's not clicked. It helps in maps, it helps in Simulacrum, but it's not really a big deal. And you can use any other flask, a unique flask, like for example Aziri's Promise. You can use Botlet Faith, you can use whatever flask you like, doesn't really matter. Yep, and now we are gonna go over calculations in our build. How are we achieving dot cap, how are we getting this 3x spark, because probably a lot of question about that. How do you get overlaps and how it works? As I said, sparks on 3 hits, and I'm gonna explain why. Spark can hit every 0.66 seconds, and as you can see, we have quite a lot of duration from Malevolence and from our clusters and from Acrimony Mastery. And we can, in ideal arena, hit up to 5 times. Obviously, we are not going to pad the damage, we are going to keep it realistic. In a normal arena, 3 is absolutely realistic. And as you can see, we have a lot of projectile speed. We have 300% projectile speed, 347 to be exact, and our quiver isn't perfectly divined either. Which means that in a decent arena, our sparks move fast and overlap quite nicely and hit multiple times. So the damage here can be even higher if the arena allows it. In config we have obviously Frenzy, Endurance and Power charges because we have Ralakesh Impatience. I've set the Endurance charges on 5 because that's the amount of charges that Immortal Call can consume at once. And we are using Immortal Call, as you can see, for some nice mitigation. And we are using some charms, like Juggernaut charms, that give endurance charge when you are hit. I also have that mod on that which was taken. allowing us to get a 50% chance when we are hit to gain an endurance charge, and content that hits you a lot, like for example simulacrum or mapping, you get consistently a 5 charge immortal call, ultimately giving you a lot of EHP. I'm also gonna talk a little bit about my body armor and why it's so shit. As you can see, it's just 20 dense fossils. You don't need the avoid elements, nor you need avoid stun. It's just useless mod because it's unveiled and I kept it. When it comes to the craft, I just used 20 dense fossils, and whatever came out of it, I used pretty much. You can improve the damage and the build quite a lot if you do better implicits. On Eldritch Gear, Conflict Orb, the normal effect of Auras, and Malevolence you keep as Grand, and it's probably gonna be way better. Same goes for Replica Badge. You would rather have Malevolence instead of Hatred. Hatred is not ideal, but Malevolence was quite expensive at the time, and Hatred was like 100C, so I got Hatred instead. When it comes to the helmet, we have like the most generic basic helmet that I crafted with Essence of Rage for strength, and got a bunch of energy shield and fist damage taken as fire craft with mana reservation, conflicted to 11%, and cast speed. This helmet cost me about 5 divines to make. It was very cheap, although you can be kind of destroyed on Eldritch Implicit Reservation. The way you craft the quiver is pretty simple. You buy the horror essences and you spam until you get projectile speed, and if you have open prefix, you can craft cannot roll attack mods and slam for life. It can also roll increased damage with both skills, but if you have 2 open prefixes, you can slam twice and get life guaranteed. The tier is not guaranteed, but the essences are not that expensive. They were 1 to 9 when I bought them, and you can realistically craft the quiver in about 10 to 15 divines. And as I said, my quiver is far from ideal. It has dead implicit. The base was 3 divines. You don't need a perfect quiver to play this build. As you can see, it's already dot capped quite easily. And it's true, it does exceed in-game limit. It's also not full potential, right? As we said, it's 5 hits, so the full potential would be even higher. And if we go ahead and click Uber Pinnacle Boss, you can see a comfortable 15 million DPS build. For a poison build, it feels pretty good. And considering the amounts of recovery from Soul Drinker and Instant Leech and Watcher's Eye with life gain on hit plus suppression, it feels extremely comfortable to play. It's a very chill play style. You also have Ghost Dances, you have High Evasion, you have decent physical damage reduction, 40% from stacking frenzy charges, right? And having Replica Badge of the Brotherhood. And that just allows for a very comfortable playstyle. You can pretty much AFK all the blights and maps, and you just run around doing sparks while doing ultimatums, and it allows for an easy challenge completion. And also, by the way, for the mapping version of the build, when you map, when you do the challenges, when you do simulacrums, I would switch this mastery to enemies poisoned by you cannot deal critical strikes. This gives you a very comfortable way to do league mechanic, to do any content that involves crits, which is things like simulacrum, things like blue juice, things like crit maps and stuff like that, right? As a chaos damage build, you don't really have much mods to avoid on maps. You can pretty much run anything outside of cannot region and outside of avoid poison. Pretty much everything else you can run quite easily. You can run less recovery because you have instant leech and life gain on hit from the jewel. Big clear boost from Eisen's Gentle Touch, which by the way can be upgraded quite easily by adding second implicit, which is cast speed. It goes to 10%, I'm pretty sure, and it's pretty good. Yeah, as you can see, this is a sizable increase. Let's put it on Uber Pinnacle, and if we remove it, yeah, we get about like 6% more damage from it, right? Just like that. Obviously, with the better chest, you get even more HP. You get even more better Widowhail with 250% increased bonuses. But obviously, with faster projectiles, I wouldn't assume you would get that. a better precursor, especially if you have maximum frenzy, added cold, and increased damage. That would be absolutely nuts. As I said, you can switch out the flasks, for example Jade for another elemental flask. On Uber bosses I would suggest you swap flask, even though I didn't do it. It doesn't require much to understand. The mechanics are pretty simple. Again, replace the Forbidden Flash and Flame combo if you have the budget for it, with the rare jewels with chaos damage, chaos.multi, dot multiplier generic, and instead get that mod for increased duration of poisons on a charm. As you can see, we have one socket free, and it's either Flame Ball that you can put in there or Withering Step, depends on what you prefer. I would say Withering Step is better for the consistency, and Flame Ball is, well, it's padding the over DPS pretty much, as you can see. And go to the configuration and click Travel through Flame Wall, we get quite a sizable increase in damage. So decide for yourself, and if you have any question, feel free to ask.